Gentlemen, what is going on today? My name is Ryan Mickler, and I am the host and the founder of the Order of Man podcast and movement. Welcome here and welcome back. We're going to talk about mastery today. We're going to discuss why it's so important. We're going to talk about what it actually is, and then we are going to address how to become more masterful. But before we get into that conversation, I first want to make a very, very quick announcement of our beard oil that I've partnered up with with Origin on. And if you're looking to have as glorious as a beard as I do right here, I know it's a little shorter than it's been in the past. Then you got to get some beard oil. This is 100% made and sourced in America by the fine people at Origin, which happen to be my neighbors, my community members, and of course, my friends and training partners. A lot of these guys I train with as well. So if you want, again, to condition the beard, make it look good, you don't want to look like a homeless person, you want to look like a man, then beard oils will certainly help you do just that. So you can go check it out on Amazon right now. That's the only place it's available. We're trying to blow it up over there. And then if you are interested, if you leave an Amazon review and email a screenshot of that review to promotions@originmfg.com, promotions@originmfg.com, then you will get a free bottle of beard oil sent to you. So go check it out. All right, guys, with that said, I want to get into the concept of mastery. I've been thinking a lot about this, and particularly I was thinking about this last night as I was training jujitsu. And I started to think about what separates those who are successful from those who are not. And there are a lot of factors, certainly physicality, athleticism, talents, gifts, skills, abilities, some of these things that we're innately born with or not, some more than others. I don't consider myself to be uniquely athletic. Some of the guys that I train with are, but I'm certainly not in that camp. So there's a lot of different factors, but I also think one of the biggest components is this concept of mastery. And so as I was training and as I continue to train over the past roughly 3 years now, I'll watch a video or instruction or listen to Pete give instruction on a particular technique or strategy, or I'll look in a jujitsu book and it'll show me, different moves and defenses and sweeps and everything else. And it's interesting how many little things go into making it effective. If you're going for a sweep, for example, it's not enough just to knock somebody off balance. You've got to take away their potential post, which might be an arm or a leg or a knee, and you've got to isolate that. You've got to shift your body. You've got to get them to balance up on top of you. There's different things that you need to do. And it's very easy to overlook some of the things that need to be done. And then you wonder and you question, why is this not working? Well, because you're not mastering it. You may have 30, 40, 50, 60, 80% of it down, but it's that last little 20% that really makes the difference. And so why do the masters do this? Why are they capable of doing that? Whether we're talking about jujitsu or building wealth in their lives, successfully navigating difficulties and challenges within a marriage, any experience that you could potentially run across in your life, there's going to be certain people who are better at it than others. And I think that the best thing that a man can do in order to improve his life is to strive to become masterful at whatever is a pursuit of his. And this is really what I wanted to focus on, this idea, this concept of pursuit. Because a lot of the times when we think of mastery or phrases like, I want to reach my potential, the problem is those are both moving targets. When is a master a master? When have you officially reached your quote unquote full potential? They're moving targets. Potential, for example, let's say that you are trying to get a promotion at work and you've got a certain set of skill sets now that have gotten you to the point where you are, but you want to get that promotion and you want to secure that. So you have to develop and learn a new set of skills and become more valuable to your employer and to your clients. And you do this. And so you get the promotion. Congratulations, you secured the promotion. Does that mean you reached your potential? No, it means you reached what you thought was your potential. But now, clearly, because you have a new skill set, you are more effective, you are more efficient, you are better. That's a moving target. Now it's actually something greater than maybe you even realized to begin with. That's the same thing with mastery. You don't ever truly become the master and then check it off your list. I think mastery is more of a pursuit than it is an objective and a goal in and of itself. And I think when we look at it that way, we can find more meaning in the monotonous and the mundane and the difficult and the challenging. And what I've seen too many men do is work towards a particular pursuit that they said they were interested in, only to be disrailed, to lose interest, to quote unquote fail, and to not achieve what it is they're after. Now, what we do is we come up with all sorts of reasons and excuses and ideas as to why we didn't accomplish what we set out to accomplish. But in many cases, they're simply forms of justification for not achieving that thing. It no longer being a priority is a valid reason. But most of what we come up with is a justification. Maybe we were robbed. Maybe there was politics involved. Maybe there were circumstances that were outside of our control. And so we'll say these things to justify our poor performance. But I think the reason most men throw in the towel too soon is because they've created this unrealistic expectations of what it would take to achieve success. What would it take to create a marriage that would last 5, 6, 7, 8 decades? What kind of effort and work and toil and blood and sweat and tears would it take to start a business from the ground up and build it and grow it and overcome competition and emerging technologies and the ever-changing landscape of social media and other tools that we have at our disposal? What will it actually take? What will it actually take for you to become a jiu-jitsu black belt, or somebody who can go on his first hunt and successfully harvest a deer or an elk? We have unrealistic expectations. And part of the reason that we do is because we jump on social media, speaking of, and we see these people who are doing miraculous and wonderful things. And what we're experiencing on our little dynamic devices, grab mine out here, called the cell phone, is the result of the effort and work that people have put forth. So we'll see the harvested animal on the hunt. We'll see the degree or the designation or certification. We'll see that somebody started in a new business, or we'll see that they already lost the 50 pounds they've been trying to lose for 2 decades, or that they're celebrating their 20th year anniversary. And so we see the result, and we think that because we're not experiencing the result for ourselves, that there must be something wrong with us. And what we don't have the opportunity and the privilege of seeing, and I would consider it a privilege, because once you start to see what I'm going to share with you here, you're going to tee yourself up for more success in your life. We don't get to see the years and years and years of effort and struggle and toil and working and failure and feedback and adjustments along the way. We don't get to see that. So these individuals that you guys follow, men like Jocko Willink and David Goggins and Steve Ranella, and the incredible men that we've had, Andy Frisella is another one that comes to mind, the incredible men that we've had on the podcast. You want to experience what they're experiencing, but most of us aren't willing to put forth the effort and actually become masterful, the pursuit of mastery. I remember several months ago, I was sitting down with Andy Frisella and we were having this conversation specifically for the podcast. And I can't remember exactly how it got brought up, but I said, if you were to take me and just plop me into your role at First Form and everything else that you have going on, the weight of what you deal with would crush me. And he said, absolutely it would. And he wasn't saying it from an arrogant or egotistical position. He was saying it from a truthful, like, you couldn't handle this, because he's developed it over decades of doing this work. So guys, rather than focusing so heavily on the outcome, which is what most of us will do because we see it and that's what we're rewarded for. And there's nothing wrong with having goals and desires and ambitions and wanting to get a promotion, wanting to start a business, wanting to lose 50 pounds, wanting to secure your next belt promotion in martial arts. Nothing wrong with that at all. But in order to become a true master, it isn't about the belt that you happen to wear around your waist. It isn't about the title. It isn't about the role that you're playing. It isn't about the ultimate objective and accomplishment. That's not what a master is. A master is somebody who's a perpetual student, somebody who's on the pursuit of mastery, somebody who's putting forth the work and the grind and the effort and the toil and the sweat every single day. And not to mention, they're getting all of the little details right. I think about this a lot when it comes to growing this organization and movement, and specifically with this podcast. I ask myself, how do I make this better? How do I make this better? How do I make this podcast better? Because when I started, it was a little spare bedroom in the basement of our house, and there was a bed behind me. I was sitting on an old computer, a $60 microphone, and it was what it was. It wasn't ideal. And today it's better, but it's not ideal. I've got a significantly better microphone. I've got the lighting you can see here. I've got different lights. I've got different cameras. I've got different technology that I've utilized and developed and implemented over the last 6 years. But it's attention to detail. And so again, a lot of guys will get the 80% right. But we know through the concept of Pareto principle that it's going to be 20% of the effort is going to produce 80% of the results. So many of us are focused on the macro. What can you see, that looks good or looks the part, but how often are you getting that little 20% right? And that's what a true master would get right, by the way. To go back and circle back to what I was talking about with jujitsu, yeah, you might get 80% of the technique down, but 80% isn't going to yield the result. 100% is going to yield the result. And that means that your foot needs to be at this particular angle, or that you got a bridge right as you bump. I mean, there's different things, and all of it has to be firing together. Now, here's the beauty of this. Is on your path to mastery, whatever that is, whether it's jujitsu or physical fitness or your marriage or your business or competitive shooting or archery or painting, or maybe you're a musician or a pianist, a guitarist, whatever, is that there's going to be a starting process, obviously, where you're a novice, right? You're a beginner, an amateur, and you have to focus on every little detail. Like everything needs to be paid hyper attention to. When you're trying to learn new chords on the guitar, it's like, and as I did this over the past several months, it's like, how do you stretch your pinky up there to that fret? And how do you do that while you're trying to put your middle finger on the second fret of the second string? And so you have to focus on every little detail, and it's painstaking and it's slow. And then gradually, because you want to be a master and you want to do it right, the pinky's stretched, the middle finger's there, and you start to notice it coming together, which does what? It frees up the mental capacity for you now to focus on something that amateurs can't focus on. They just don't have the capacity to focus on it because their mind, the power, the computing power in their brain is tied up with things that you've become so accustomed to at this point that it's no longer a thought. That's a pretty powerful and cool thing to see, is that I can get better and better and better and better. And what we start to see as we improve, as we start to see opportunities and little things, little adjustments, little tweaks in the way that we show up that will help us yield just that much more, just a little bit more. And you compound these days over and over and over and over again. And before you know it, you look back over a 5-6 year period and you're amazed with the results that you've been able to produce. But it's not about the result. It's about who you've become in the process, a master, at least somebody who's on the pursuit of mastery. So what I'd like you to consider as we start to wind things down here for today is, how are you showing up? Not for the big things. Everybody shows up for the big things. If you go to the gym, and you think, okay, well, I'm going to do my deadlifts, I'm going to do my squats, I'm going to do my bench press, I'm going to do, all of these things. Well, let's just isolate one of those lifts for a second. Let's take the deadlift. If you go in and you just walk up to the bar and you lift, you're probably going to be able to lift some weight off the floor. And as you continue to do it, you're going to get stronger, of course, inevitably. But what if for a second you decided to do it right? To learn where to position your feet, to keep that bar as close to you as possible, to pull, all the way up, push through the floor, to keep the back straight so you're not potentially injuring or hurting your back. Like, what if you actually did it right? And actually, before that, even you put the right shoes on and you got the right amount of sleep the night before and you were hydrated and you didn't eat a bunch of junk food. You ate the right food, because this is what a master would do, right? A master is not going to just show up and wing it and hope it works. No, a master is actually going to go in and they're going to figure out all of these little details that amateurs overlook. And they're going to make themselves the absolute best they possibly can. When I come here to do a podcast, I don't just wing it. I don't just start yapping and talking about whatever crosses my mind. I take notes. I've got notes right here on my notepad. And I'm taking notes when I have guests. I'm taking notes for you guys as I'm having this conversation. This is well thought out. I've already thought about and articulated, even written down what it is I want to talk with you about today, because I want to be masterful at this. I don't want to rest on my laurels. I don't want to rest on potentially my ability or even skill development of being able to have a meaningful conversation via this podcast. I want to improve. I want to get better. So what I'd like you to do is ask yourself where you're not showing up like a master. Is it in your relationship? Like, do you get home, not really pay much attention to your wife or your kids, not really think about how you may honor your commitment and word to her? When you have dinner with the family, hopefully you're doing that. When you have dinner with the family, are you distracted by your phone or your wearable that keeps buzzing at you? Or are you fully engaged and fully present in your wife and your children's lives? Because if you want to be a masterful father, and I think a lot of us do, then that's what you would do. And by the way, guys, I'm not saying I'm perfect at this. I'm not pointing fingers and saying, you need to do this, you need to do that. When I'm talking to you, I'm actually talking to myself as well. If I care about it, if I value it, then I will do what a master does. And a master isn't somebody who's just taking the path of least resistance. It's not somebody who is resting on their laurels or their past successes. Somebody who's very wrapped up in the details of what makes a success a success. It's somebody who's very intentional, not just about the performance itself, but what leads up to the performance. What is your mindset like when you get home? If it's stuck on what happened during work or you were unproductive at work, then of course it's not going to be as efficient or good at home because you're wrapped up there and you're not fully present here. I'm going to be thinking about this a lot more because I want to excel. And when I look around and I see, and by the way, I've had conversations with, I believe, close to 330 extremely, extremely successful men via this podcast. This is one of the things that I notice is that they do things that most of us do not. They are masters. They are on the pursuit of mastery. So what I'd like you to think about this weekend, so we're Friday right now, if you're listening to this today, it's recorded, is ask yourself, how can I make this better? If you want to be a master. If you don't, okay. But if you do, if you want to be masterful and get better, then I think this is a great place to start. How can I make this better? How can I make this weekend better for me? How can I make this weekend better for my wife and my children? How can I make it so that as the weekend comes to an end and I potentially go back to work, that I'm actually a better person? I'm better equipped to deal with what I'll have to address next week, that I don't slide back into bad habits or default modes, but that I'm constantly pressing and moving forward. How can I make the way that I project myself into public settings, whether that's for my client or my wife or other relationships, a boss, employer? What can I do from the way that you communicate, how you articulate a message, your grooming, the things that you're wearing, the way that your car looks? That's an interesting one. You know, if I'd be willing to bet that a lot of successful people probably have meticulous looking cars. I've seen it because they realize that their space, their environment is important. And so they keep it that way by design because they see that that will actually translate over into other things. This is where the whole thing of the way you do one thing is the way you do everything comes from. How are you showing up? Are you going 80%? Are you going to like almost there? Or are you getting those 10, 15, 20% little things that the amateurs don't focus on? You want uncommon results, you've got to do what the uncommon do. And they do the 20%. They don't always get it right, but they know it exists. They focus on it as they can, and they get after it. So that's what I'm focused on. I'm going to be using my battle planner that I've used for, well, I've had this one for probably 4 or 5 years now, to help me see where I'm falling short and where I'm doing well. I'm going to continue to ask myself, how can I make this better, from this podcast to the email I'm going to send out, to the phone call I'm going to have, to the conversation I'm going to have with my kids. Every interaction that I have is, how can I make this better? How can I become masterful? How can I stay on this pursuit of mastery in any endeavor that I pursue? Because if you're going to pursue it, then it's worth being the best. All right, guys, we'll be back next week. Think about that this weekend. Until then, go out there, take action, and become the man you are meant to be.